understanding that it's not our fault. We didn't create this. And how do we change our perception so that when we react to them, we can keep our composure and we can see the opportunities in this problem? So if we look at perception, Ryan Holiday breaks perception down into 4 parts. He says you need to be objective about the problem, you need to control your emotions, you need to have perspective, and you need to focus on what can be controlled. So if we look at being objective, by being objective, you need to remove yourself from the picture. This morning I sat with two MDs of a advertising firm, and we had to retrench one of their staff. And they love him. He's a great guy, hell of a nice guy, the sweetest guy you'll ever meet, has such a great impact on the culture, works really, really hard, but he's not right for the organization. The organization needs people who can turn out quick designs very quickly, speedily, be able to come up with a concept, draw design immediately. He's been there for 5 years, and even after 5 years, he's not able to do that. We've been through a performance management process with him. We've done all the right things. We've given him training. And he's still not meeting his billable hours. And they kept saying to me, it's easy for me to make the call because I don't know him personally, as personally as they do. I haven't worked with him as closely. And I said, and they were going through it today. Yeah, but he just doesn't make his billable hours, but he's such a nice guy. But he just doesn't do this, but he's such a nice guy. And I said to them, guys, for a second, remove yourself from this picture. If somebody else was asking you for this advice, if somebody from another business came to you and said, this is my problem, I've got this guy, I need to do retrenchments in my business. I've got a guy who's not performing. I think that there's a possibility I can offer him voluntary retrenchment, but he's such a nice guy. What would you say? You would definitely tell that person to make the call. It's a kind call to make. It's the kind of call to make than firing him for poor performance. And so it was easy for them when they pulled themselves out of the situation. It was easy for me to remove myself from the picture so that I could be objective because I don't know him as well. It was hard for them. So always think about that. How would you advise someone else in the situation? If you can remove yourself from the situation for a second and just look at the bold facts of what's going on, what would you suggest to yourself? And the more you practice this, the easier it is to be able to continue to do this. So when you're in a difficult situation, keep on practicing this. Another way to do this, or something to help you with this, is to use contrarian thinking. So we need to control our emotions. And controlling our emotions means not panicking as soon as something happens. Use contrarian thinking. So contrarian thinking says, let's say you're running a business and your business lost money. Wow, we've lost money now. We've lost this client. And then you say to yourself, but don't all businesses lose money at some point? Yeah, I suppose they do. Okay. So then if they do, if you're supposed to kind of lose money in business, that's one of the things that happens. That's one of the milestones that happens. Then why are we so panicked about having lost this money? It's just a milestone. Whenever I buy a new car, well, I make it sound like I buy new cars all the time, but I remember having bought a new car and my dad said to him, all you've got to do is just scratch it. So I said, pardon? He said, because until you scratch your car, you're going to be thinking, I don't want to scratch it. Once you scratched it, you scratched it. That's what happens. Cars are supposed to be scratched. And it was such an interesting thought for me that cars are supposed to be scratched. So don't get upset when your car is scratched, because that happens. And that's kind of what Ryan Holiday is asking us to do here. He's saying, don't panic about what's happening. Control your emotions and say, is this something that's supposed to happen? Has this happened before? Right now, in fact, an hour before the seminar, my mom left a doctor. We found out that she's got a small tumor in her brain. It doesn't seem like it's anything to panic about, but she does have to have some surgery next week. And we are a little bit panicked. Obviously, my mom's not a spring chicken anymore, and we are a little bit panicked about it. But what I loved in my mom's message, because she has practiced this her whole life, is that she sent us a voice note because she didn't want to write the message down and she wanted us all to have the same message at the same time. So she sent us a voice note in the family group. And in this voice note, she must have said about 6 times, but the doctor has done this operation many times before. and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and I'm going to be in ICU. But the doctor's not worried. He's done this operation many times before. And what she was trying to do, without knowing that that's what she was trying to do, is use contrarian thinking to say, has this doctor done this before? Yes, he has, many times. Has he been successful? Yes, he has. So then what do I actually need to worry about? And it was, she was convincing herself, I think, more than us. But certainly that's something she was doing. Marcus Aurelius, who is one of the greatest Stoics known to man, he probably is the father of Stoicism. He said, does what happened keep me from acting with justice, self-control, sanity, prudence, honesty, humility, and straightforwardness? And if the answer is no, then get back to work. Control your emotions. We also have to think, when we're talking about perception, is about having perspective. And when we talk about having perspective, I always ask myself, is this going to matter in 5 years? I ask myself two things. The first thing I'm going to ask myself is this going to matter in 5 years? And luckily, my nephew has been able to now sort out his issue. But I remember speaking to him about a month ago, and he was saying, it's so unfair. I'm in matric. I've worked so damn hard to get my colours blazer. I really have pushed everything that I can. And now, because I'm not going to be in the final play, because we're not going to have a final play because of coronavirus, I'm not going to get my colours. And so I'm not going to get my colours blazer. And I've worked so hard. And it was a difficult conversation to have, because I know how much this means to him right now. But I said to him, boy, is this going to matter to you in 5 years' time? In 5 years, are you going to care? When you're 23 and you finished varsity and you're in your first job, are you going to care that you didn't get your colours blazer? Turns out the teachers acted as if the play had happened and gave points to all the kids who would have been in the play. And so he managed to get his colours blazer, and he qualified for that on Friday, which was really fantastic for him. But it's the perception. Is this thing that I'm going through right now, is it going to matter in 5 years' time? I also need to ask myself, what's the worst thing that can happen here? What's the worst thing that can happen? And I always take it to the extreme. So we had a client recently where one of my team made a mistake on something that they'd done. It was on their UIF application for trying to get some money for their team that they had laid off during the lockdown. And one of the girls made a small mistake where the ID numbers, when she converted the file, the ID numbers swapped up. And so we applied for the wrong amounts for the wrong people. And she was really panicked because this was going to be massive. I said, okay, let's think about it. And she was really she was crying, and she said, I'm so sorry. And this is how do we tell the clients? And I said, okay, let's just stop for 1 second. What is the worst thing that can happen here? The worst thing that can happen from the client's perspective is that they get the money they're supposed to get, but when the staff go look on the screen, they see that they were allocated 6,000, but actually they were only allocated 4,000. We send out a communication to the staff, explain to them what happened, and we pay them what they deserve. Okay? So that's the worst thing that can happen from the client's perspective. From our perspective, and we pushed it right to the end, from our perspective, this client that we've built trust with over the last 3.5, 4 years, who knows that everything we do is immaculate, who will understand that we made a mistake during the craziest time of any of our lifetimes, might fire us. That's the worst thing that can happen. We lose the client. I said, okay, so now let's say we lose the client. Let's push that out a bit. We lose the client. What does that mean? That means we lose the income. It's a big client, fine. Okay, so we're going to lose quite a big chunk of our income. What then? What's the worst thing that can happen then? The worst thing that can happen is that maybe for the next 3 months, we all have to take a small cut in salary until we make up that income again. Can everyone live with that outcome? Yes, they can. Okay. So then the worst thing that can happen is not so bad. And so it just gives you a perspective of what's going on. We also talk about, I don't have to, I get to. And that's been used quite a lot during this lockdown. But what it does is it changes my perspective. I don't have to stay at home. I get to work from home and be with my family. And so here are some examples that we can talk about reframing. The one is, for example, having a bad boss. So you've got a bad boss. He shouts at you all the time. Nothing you can do is right for him, etc., etc. Okay. Fine. So we've got this bad boss. If I reframe it and say, this is such a great opportunity for me because I'm going to use this time to look for another job. And while I'm looking for another job, I'm going to do all the things that I would do if I didn't have fear of losing my job, because I know I'm going to get another job anyway. So I'm going to work my hours and only my hours. And the time that I've got left over, because I always put in more than I need to, I'm going to start working on my own project or building my own business or looking for another job or studying or spending time with my family. I'm going to use this opportunity working for this guy to understand what it's like to work for a bad leader, so that one day when I lead, I know what the worst example of leadership is. Retrenchments is another example. Retrenchment is a great example because what retrenchment does is it says, I've always wanted to start my own business. I've been stuck in this dead-end job. I've always wanted to start my own business, but I was too scared because what if I lost my job? Well, now you've lost your job and you've got a small little nest egg to start something. So what have you got to lose by starting your own business at this point? What have you got to lose? You don't have anything to lose. And so many times I've seen people that I've retrenched, and I've done this for 20 years. So many people that I've seen that I've retrenched who've come out of it stronger because now all of a sudden with nothing to lose, they do the thing that they would do if they had no fear. Making a mistake, I always learn from my mistakes. The computer's erased my work. It's given me an opportunity to rewrite it with my thoughts more consolidated. Another thing I need to do when I'm trying to create a perception of something is to focus on what can be controlled. Just like myself in the traffic earlier this week, I couldn't control the traffic. I couldn't control the fact that there was traffic. But what I could control is my emotions, my judgments around it, the creativity that I had about what I was going to do during this time, my attitude towards it, my perspective, my desires, my determination. Those are things I can control. All of those things are the things that I can control. Stephen Covey always says, we can't choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we react to it. And it's kind of like the serenity prayer that people say in AA. And there's another, this is kind of based a little bit on AA principles, but certainly in the serenity prayer, we say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. You cannot control whether you're retrenched or not. You cannot control whether you've been in an accident or not. You can't control the traffic, the weather, the fact that there's a global pandemic happening at the moment. Those are things that you cannot control. Give me the courage to change the things I can. So what are the things I can change? I can change my emotions. And it takes courage to be brave in a moment of an obstacle than to be angry. And the wisdom to know the difference. So always look at your thing and say, what is it that I can control in this situation? Okay, so we've spoken about perception. We've spoken about perception, and with perception, we said that I need to be objective, that I need to control my emotions, that I need to kind of have perspective of what's going on, and I need to focus on what can be controlled. The next thing that Ryan Holiday tells us to do is to take action. And to take action, we need to practice persistence. We need to iterate what we're going to do. We need to follow the process, and we need to focus on results. So now I'm saying, okay, so I've been retrenched, and now I'm going to start my own business. Fine. Or whatever the case may be. Let's use that as an example because I think it affects a lot of people at the moment. Don't give up at the very first setback. Temporary setbacks are just that. They're temporary. It's supposed to be hard to start your own business. Otherwise, you would have done it before you were retrenched. It's supposed to be hard to run a marathon. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. Do you know that Thomas Edison experimented with 6,000 filaments before finding one that worked? Zig Ziglar, who's a great motivational speaker and a sales guru, he always says, everything worth doing is worth doing badly at first. So practice persistence. Whatever you're going to be doing, practice persistence. Try. If it doesn't work, try again. If it doesn't work, try again. Keep trying, keep pushing. Always get reminded of that. There's a meme that's out where a little cartoon where there's two guys digging for diamonds, mining for diamonds underground. And one guy's dug and dug and dug and dug. And he, just before he finds this huge payload, he decides to give up. And if he just kept digging for another day, another hour, he might have reached that payload. And I think that's what we've got to remember. Sometimes the payload is just around the corner. Okay, we do have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to make sure that we do get through this. Okay. The next thing in taking action is to iterate. So iterate says, what are the different iterations that I can have of this project? And so we have to remember that progress is better than perception. Steve Jobs, who was all about beauty, he was all about perfection and amazingness. Even he said, what is my minimum viable product? What is my MVP? Because if I can get that out, and I've got that out, then that's amazing. Once I've got that out, I can start. I can just start this process. And if that one thing doesn't work, we're already ahead of the guys who didn't start, because we now know. We know where we are. So an example is that there's a large retail chain at the moment that's made a decision to not allow third-party merchandisers in their stores. This is causing massive problems in the retail industry because hundreds of jobs are being held by external merchandisers in stores. And there are massive merchandising companies who are now having to retrench their staff and are wondering what they're going to do because this large retail chain has decided they're not going to allow these merchandisers in store. One of my clients has always had merchandisers in stores, but also backed up what they've done with insights and intelligence. So they'd be able to go to their clients and say, we're not just going to pack the shelves for you. We're going to tell you how your product is performing in the store, what you should be doing to make that product perform better, how we can get you better sales, how we can get more product of yours on the shelves, etc. And because of that, they are already way ahead. Even though their product isn't perfect, they are way ahead of the massive merchandising companies who are now scrambling to get some kind of work out of their clients so they don't lose their clients completely. Even though what they don't have is perfect, it's out there. And certainly the best stories of great success are preceded by epic failures. I mean, we know this. There are all those stories about the guy who went for a job at Facebook and didn't get it, to end up starting Twitter or end up starting WhatsApp, and Facebook then bought WhatsApp for billions of dollars, etc. We know that some of the best stories of great success are preceded by epic failures. The next thing you need to do is to follow the process. So whatever the process is, it's about doing the right things right now. Don't worry about what might happen later or the results or the whole picture. Just do the next step. Just take the next step. So don't worry, you want to start running a marathon, you want to start becoming a marathon runner, buy the techies. Once you've bought your trainers, go for a walk. Once you've done that, download an app that's going to help you get the things done. Don't worry that you're still running at 10 minutes a kilometer when to run a marathon you need to be at 7 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever the case may be. Don't worry about that. Just do the next step. I always ask my team when we've got a big project, how do we eat an elephant, guys? One bite at a time. So focus on the results. At its core, you know what you actually want to achieve. I had an old boss who used to speak to me about the scorpion. And he said, when you look at a scorpion, it's crunchy and it's gross and it's ugly and you freak out about the whole scorpion. But actually, the only thing dangerous about the scorpion is that little sting in its tail. And so if you know what that sting is, what's the one thing that makes that thing dangerous? What's the one thing you want to achieve? And you focus on just getting that sting. The rest of it is not such a big problem anymore. So focus on what it is that you want to achieve. Is it a new business? Is it to get a new job? Is it to just come out of this thing alive? What is it that you want to achieve? And when you know that, focus on that. And everything else will then come together. And finally, we're going to talk about will. And the will is the ability to carry on even in the face of obstacles and even in the face of knowing that this thing is hard. Because we can start, but do we have the will to carry on? And so in order to achieve our will, we need to anticipate failure, accept what is out of our control, love everything that happens to us, and persevere. So when we anticipate failure, we have to know that things are really going to go according to plan. We rarely get what we think we deserve. So knowing that, meditate on what might go wrong and plan for it. So we call that a pre-mortem. We call that a pre-mortem. What is it that could happen if we do this? What are the worst things that can happen? We often do this when we're going into disciplinary hearings with my team. I say, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen here? Right. What if she says that? Fine. What if she brings a lawyer? Okay, how are we going to deal with that? What if she wants a postponement? Okay. And once we know that we've tried to think of every single little thing that could go wrong and we've planned for it, we go in with much more confidence because we know we've anticipated failure and we've already planned for it. The worst thing that can happen is not that something that can go wrong, but that something goes wrong and it catches you by surprise. We've spoken about this a lot already today, but you have to be able to accept what is out of your control. Like traffic signs, life sometimes puts stops and yields and rights onlys in our way. But once we accept what's out of our control, we can concentrate fully on what is in our control. If we spend all our time being angry about the fact that this coronavirus is ruining our businesses, we're not concentrating on how to grow our business. The coronavirus has happened, it's there. Accept it, and now say, okay, what is that one thing? What is the sting in my tail? It's keeping my business alive. Right, what do I have to do about that? How can I be creative? How can I use this opportunity? I'm not going to lie, I've used this opportunity, guys. It's been terrible. But I've used the opportunity by creating COVID policies, by putting ourselves out there as if you need to retrench people, we are the guys to do it for you kindly, etc. And it's horrible that I'm making money of other people's demise, but I have to keep my business alive. And if I remember that sting in the tail, I have to keep my business alive, then everything else, it's not that the end justifies the means. I'm not asking you to be cool, but certainly be innovative and use what you can. I'm speeding up a little bit because we are running a little bit out of time. Okay, so love everything that happens. Change your view from I must do this to I get to do this. Understand that what has happened for a reason. And if you make the most out of this, you can turn it into an opportunity. So often things will happen to you and you don't know why they're happening. But always think somebody else, the universe, God, whoever you believe in, is in control of this thing. And everything that's happening is happening for a reason. And if I know that, be in the moment of what's happening. It's not always going to be easy. It's not great to go and love the fact that your dog's been in a car accident or whatever the case may be. But understand that that thing is happening for a reason. And finally, persevere. Like the persistence we spoke about in the action section, we have to keep going. Life isn't one obstacle. It's not one thing that's going to get in your way. You say, okay, I got over that, cool, now I'm going. We need a determination to go where we need to go, somehow, some way, and nothing can stop us. We need to be able to keep going and understand that obstacles are going to get in our way and we need to be able to push past those. And finally, be prepared to start again. This thing is hard. If you're retrenched and you've been spending the last 6 years building your name at a company and you finally got to a place where you're in a position of trust, etc., and now you're retrenched, you have to go do that again. But remember, you're doing it with those 6 years of experience already behind you. So you're already 6 steps ahead of where you were when you started at the last place. So you're never starting from the beginning. These are tough times, guys. These are really, really tough times. But certainly there is a way for us to turn these tough times into an opportunity. There is a way for us to turn these obstacles into opportunities. We know that the obstacle is the way. Thank you very much.
Wow, Janine, you are incredible. And what you've shared is just absolutely stunning. And
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Beyond what you shared, I must thank you for your time. And really, I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate that, and for investing and believing in me and this process. And we will definitely be sharing and resharing this recording onwards. So it's not
Please
a one.
Go ahead.
And blessings, blessings, blessings from me to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And to you, my friend. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Cool. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.